We're 30 minutes behind, so I think we'll get started. This is the Power to X session. We are following cultured meat, but we are still on the theme of decarbonization. Power X has been mentioned maybe a few times today already on producing hydrogen as an alternative fuel. The idea is to use renewable energy, mostly through electrolysis and water, and you make hydrogen. Hydrogen doesn't exist in a natural state, so you have to make the hydrogen. It could be either from methane, and that's not very green, or water. It could be possibly even salt water. So there's a big push now, particularly as we have 20 to 30 gigawatts of offshore wind planned on the U.S. East Coast. Electricity, particularly at night, when the load and the power and the load curve don't necessarily match, could that excess electricity be used to make alternative fuel? So we have a great panel here. Today we're going to hear about different ways of making green hydrogen as well as demand. So why don't we start with introductions, and then each speaker will tell where they're from and how their organization is looking at Power to X. By the way, I'm Mark Huang. I'm one of the co-founders of See Ahead. We run a blue tech incubator up in Massachusetts. We were one of the first. I actually live here in the Research Triangle. We invest and help companies particularly focused on the ocean economy tied to sustainability. So offshore wind and electrifying our waterfront and alternative fuels is a big focus of ours. So first, I'll pass off to Kenji Togasaki from IIno Ventures.
Hi, I'm Kenji Togasaki from IIno Lines, Houston. IIno Lines is an ocean shipping company. It's a Japanese ocean shipping company and mainly operates tankers. I'm handling innovation from Houston. Well, innovation means connecting startup technology to our company and also investing in them. About hydrogen, it's very important for ocean shipping company because it's very clean. It doesn't emission like carbon emission. But if you talk about hydrogen, there are two aspects I want to talk about today. One is we are a consumer of the hydrogen. We will be the consumer of the hydrogen in the future. And also we will be the carrier of the hydrogen. So these two aspects are very important to segregate when we discuss, because we sometimes get confused. Maybe we're talking about the consuming or we're talking about the carriage. But one common thing, very important thing, is same to both aspects. Because when we carry or we'll utilize as a fuel, portability is very important, because ship does not have enough capacity to carry the gas. We have to liquefy it. In terms of hydrogen, it's not efficient to liquefy it because it requires to be cooled down to negative 252 degrees Celsius. That's in Fahrenheit, it's negative 420 Fahrenheit. So it's still inefficient to liquefy using the refrigeration. So in such case, how do we do it? So we do by derivatives. So hydrogen derivatives we're looking at as a fuel is ammonia and methanol. Methanol is already proven technology. We already have methanol dual fuel engine, and also ammonia is coming up. But both of the fuels has the pros and cons. So methanol, it's still carbon is included in the formula. So when burn it, we will have a carbon emission. But the ammonia is totally clean, but its toxicity is there. So if you leak in the engine room, that's going to be very dangerous. So, but either way, we're looking at both like methanol and ammonia as a future fuel, and as a carrier, we are also looking at ammonia, because ammonia we can carry, technically carry on the LPG vessel, and of course methanols we can carry on chemical tankers, and also the other technologies are there, like MCH, LOHC is like liquid state as an ambient temperature. So those are carried on the chemical tankers. So we are actually ready on both sides, like gas tankers and chemical tankers. So yeah, that's my view on the hydrogen side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenji-san. Marc-Johann Kavantsaari came all the way from Finland. We'll switch gears a bit and coming in from the solar perspective.
Okay, hi everybody. Pleasure to be here. So I'm from Faraday, representing Faraday. It's a fairly new venture in the United States. And what we are designing, developing, and building are solar refineries, which means taking solar energy and then producing green hydrogen through electrolysis. And then also, of course, that's a commodity we could sell to industrial off-takers within oil refining, chemical industry, even green steel making in the future. But then even, as Kenji said, very interesting to refine it to other carbon neutral hydrocarbons and ammonia to be used then in shipping and fertilizer manufacturing. So that's very briefly what we do. And why we're very excited about Power-to-X and the potential of hydrogen as a platform. We see hydrogen more as a platform, and as you look at what happened with solar and wind during the past 10 to 15 years, so we see that same technological and cost development happening with electrolyzers, both in Europe and in the US. So it's a very interesting time to hop on this train, and we see hydrogen not alone, we see it more as a platform to create fantastic carbon neutral hydrocarbon fuels and chemicals for future industrial off-takers. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. If I can add to what you noted, being a clean tech guy, which dates me early solar, electrification, and then even LED lighting and the transformation. As those sectors emerged and became more mature, the venture community, which we were part of, would follow the cost curve, right? 12 years ago, the lithium-ion battery pack is $1,500 a kilowatt hour. It's less than 100 in your electric cars today. So what Mark described on electrolyzer is that's the question that I think the sustainability venture community today is very focused on, is what are the new generations of electrolyzers and what's that cost curve? And is it gonna hit the inflection point like we're about to see on electric cars with lithium ion or solar or wind? Okay, so our next panelist is Mitsutoshi Morishita from Mitsui Shipping, and one of the largest corporates in Japan with a large footprint. Does that work? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. And good afternoon. My name is Mitsutoshi from MOL, Mitsui O.S.K Lines shipping company, same as Kenji. And I'm a general manager of business development in US, mainly looking at corporate venture capital. The name is MOL Switch, which was launched last year. And MOL is operating 800 vessels in the world, including LNG, tanker, bulk carrier, car carrier, yeah, many kinds. So you can imagine we are consuming lots of heavy fuel and producing 12 million tons of CO2 every year. And in the meantime, we have a net zero target by 2050, so lots of things to do. And in short term, we are shifting to LNG fuel as transition, but LNG is still producing CO2. So we need consume, in future, we need consume more clean energy like ammonia, e-methanol. And so we need hydrogen here. And yeah, it is true. There is traditional technology to produce hydrogen, ammonia, e-methanol, but question is cost and scalability. So we need innovation or breakthrough in this area. That's why we decided to launch MOL Switch last year. The fund size is 100 million, and the main scope is investment in decarbonizing technology, like producing hydrogen, ammonia, or e-methane. which can contribute to cost reduction and the scalability, which I mentioned. And in terms of power to X, we have some example in our business. MOL is a shipping company, so our core business is shipping. It's no change. But MOL is trying to be a social infrastructure company, especially in value chain in energy sector. Which means we will expand our business opportunity not only in maritime, but also upstream side, for example, producing clean ammonia, clean methanol production project, from which we can secure offtake for our fuel, or we can secure transportation opportunity of such clean fuel for our additional revenue. And the other example is still small scale, but we are developing 100% emission zero vessel with utilizing wind power for propulsion and to produce hydrogen on board. We say this project, Wind Hunter project. The concept is when wind is strong, the sail on the vessel can capture wind power for propulsion, and in the same time, the turbines in the water spins to generate electricity to produce hydrogen with electrolyzer. And on the other hand, when wind is weak, vessel can utilize hydrogen in fuel cell to generate electricity for propulsion. We already completed demonstration test in Japan, and this year we will start construction of this vessel. The size is like 60 or 70 meters length with sail and mast. Yeah, this is our company's example. So as you can see, we have lots of opportunity in hydrogen in maritime sector, and I hope to work together with many people to achieve our net zero target. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toshi. Now, Justin Gutknecht from Chicago, but with Strata Energy, which is a local company.
Hello, everyone. So Strata Energy, Clean Energy, it's a vertically integrated, privately owned renewable company. Develop, construct, operate. So it handles across the value chain. And let's talk about the problem statement, because I'm not a fan of power to X, because it's really clean fuels. So outside the shipping industry, what are we trying to decarbonize? Hard to abate industrial companies with very low profit margins. I'm pretty sure a lot of people here don't want their tissue paper, their toilet paper to go up 300% overnight. But let's talk about our customers. Pulp and paper mills in Longview, Washington, an hour away from Portland. Progressive city, but there's about 3 million tons of CO2 being emitted in Longview, Washington every year with multiple pulp and paper mills, okay? And do you know how they're charging, how they're fueling the boilers, the recovery boilers and the lime kilns? Coal, because they can't get gas. And Bonneville Power Administration, the big transmission entity, they can't serve renewables to that sector of the grid within a decade. So how do we decarbonize a pulp and paper mill? Well, let's think about it. They got a lot of wood chips, all right? A lot of waste. How about we gasify that, right? Make some biomass and put that in the recovery mill. Pulp mills, they got a lot of pulp sludge and wastewater. How about we put an anaerobic digester, produce renewable natural gas, and put it back in the recovery boiler? And what about all that CO2 that's getting emitted? Why don't we do a mean carbon capture system, blend a small amount of clean hydrogen with that CO2 through a methanation catalytic reactor and produce synthetic methane, and once again, recircle back in that system. These are the problems that we're trying to solve today. It's not one solution, power to X. We gotta look at the whole system, all these processes. All these customers are not set up to blend the hydrogen 100% in these boilers or in these steam turbines, right? So where does Strata fit in? We're just trying to do our small part. We're just trying to produce the lowest levelized cost of energy in renewables as close as possible to large industrials that are far away from a solution. And the nice thing is that Strata became one of the largest renewable development and operators over 15 years, but it started small, 2 megawatts, 1 megawatt, and now we're building the biggest battery in Arizona. This solution is not going to happen overnight. So the good thing is there's a lot of young people in the crowd, and you probably got a good 30 years of employment, because that's how long does it take to decarbonize industrials.
Thanks, Justin. I think Justin raises two good points, right? Is one, power to X is not necessarily offshore wind or solar to electrolysis. If you're doing biomass and it is renewable as a source, pyrolysis, Fischer trough, whatever synfuel, syngas you can come from that biomass, I believe that qualifies under the definition of power to X. The point being is just calculate the carbon, right? The input and the output. To reemphasize why ammonia has been talked about and methanol, it's probably not mentioned in many of the panels, is shipping alongside maybe aerospace is probably the two toughest sectors to decarbonize. 8,000 nautical miles per vessel, that's like a Class 8 truck going from New York to LA and back, and you can't charge, so there's no battery technology. So these are hydrogen derivative fuels, the methanol and ammonia, starting from some sort of green hydrogen. I think, Justin, you raised a second point. This is not going to happen overnight. When's the last time any of us pulled up into a hydrogen refueling station for our hydrogen or our fuel cell car? Not. The numbers are staggering on the infrastructure investment, as far as this is making the fuel, but distributing it or moving it from where it's made to logistic nodes, all the way to potentially us using hydrogen other than electric as an alternative fuel. So what is talked about is I don't keep track of it, other people may, the different colors, green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, purple, pink. Right. The point is that there's a transition of where we are today with this aspiration. We're only in the first inning of ideally maybe hydrogen being the carbon neutral, carbon negative fuel of the future, but it won't happen overnight. So on that point, maybe if I could ask, maybe start again with, I mean, what are your thoughts with you all on the biggest hurdles? Is it the financing?
Yeah,
is it policy?
okay.
Is it lack of technology, innovation, all the above?
Well, definitely it's a cost is involved, but it's not efficient. Well, it's not enough to just point out a cost, because now let's say green ammonia or green methanol, it costs about 3 times or 4 times expensive than the conventional methanol or ammonia. So always be cost being involved, but it's not fair to say just we're not using because it's expensive. So what I see is we definitely need a carbon credit market to come in. We already have a voluntary carbon credit market on the out there right now, but we don't have any regulatory carbon market yet. So we definitely need a regulatory carbon market to come in, and people have to pay the tax to, or if you use like gray methanol or gray ammonia instead of a green or blue ammonia or methanol. So that's the major hurdles I will see. And if you don't have those kind of cost structure, it will be very difficult for the corporate to use the green or blue ammonia or methanol. That's my view.
Yeah, so I would like to emphasize that if you look at technological development and even transformations from one energy source to another, so those were long periods, like when we went from coal to oil and from oil to natural gas, they took decades, each one of them. And now we're trying to achieve a revolution in those within maybe 10 to 15 years, so half the time. And the other thing that I would love to emphasize is that we talk a lot about the cost, and of course, money makes the world go round, and you have to bring the unit cost down. But if you look at, no matter if it's software, if it's hardware, if it's electric cars or batteries or personal computers, in the beginning of those technological transformation, everybody talked about size and cost. And those transformations happened even though there were a lot of talk that, if you think about personal computers back in the early days, was it IBM's CEO or vice chairman of the board said that there will be maybe 5 to 10 computers in the world and they will never be smaller than a BMW or a Volkswagen. So, and still that revolution happened. So I would say that, yeah, cost is an issue, but comparing, just looking blindly at the cost and forgetting that with innovation, with resources, and with people willing to take risks and scale up these technologies, and off-takers willing to take risk buying these products, we will achieve those cost reductions and we will achieve that scale and those technology innovations. But they will not happen if people are just focusing on that right now the cost is so much higher compared to fossil fuel alternatives, then the change will never happen. So I would encourage both people investing in the space, working in the space, the technology developers, to try to see the longer perspective, and also to remember that the steps that each new technology have gone through before becoming mainstream.
Yeah, to reemphasize that maybe the analogy, right, Mark, we talked about the other renewables. Offshore wind today, what's being bid, sometimes a little too aggressively for them, but what's being bid off the coast is coming close to grid parity. That did not happen overnight, right? That happened over decades of investment and policy. Mitsutoshi, if I can ask you, you have, as a large Japanese corporate, you actually have 2 large venture arms. So maybe you can talk more, and you make direct investments. So maybe if I can ask, what are you specifically looking at relative to Power to X, the type of startups, and what's, yeah.
Okay, yeah. As Emory Switch, recently we invested the startups. The name is Starfire in Colorado. They are developing ammonia producing and ammonia cracking technology, not using hoverboard, but they can make it with very low temperature and low pressure. So means they can achieve low cost production. And other thing is we invested direct air capture company. And at this moment, we cannot disclose the name, but we are looking also carbon capture side because we need carbon credit to some extent at 2050. Also, CO2 is necessary to produce e-methane, e-methanol, e-fuel. So yeah, this is some example.
So when I came out of grad school, not even this century, with General Electric, it was, I call it hydrogen 1.0. That was, now we're in hydrogen 2.0. So obviously hydrogen 1.0 did not happen. Governor Schwarzenegger, the big press release of the hydrogen highway, it may happen in California now, but it didn't happen 15 years ago. So Justin, I don't know if I'm going to put you on a spot though, but maybe I mean, it's not a given that green hydrogen is going to happen. And do you want to maybe talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of how it may not happen or be very much delayed?
Yeah, so I think the problem is it's to really create a clean fuel economy, you got to ease into it over 20 years. That's exactly how the wind and solar got created. One, a lot of good technologies like algae conversion technologies for CO2 are low technology readiness, 5, 6. If you're going to get any capital, whether it's tax equity or debt, because it's private capital, it's a fund of all this, you got to start small, you got to show everything operates, and then over time, costs will come down, particularly lending standards. And so what scares me right now is you got a lot of renewable outfits out there. They're like, let me go build 2 million tons per annum of hydrogen in West Texas and go a 500-mile H2 pipeline to Corpus Christi to decarbonize. Good luck. $8–10 billion, you could do sequestration of CO2 right there in Corpus Christi. So I think to really attack the market, you gotta be starting small and look for great opportunities. There's a lot of hydrogen users out there that are buying high carbon intensive hydrogen. Are they willing to blend 5–10% in clean hydrogen and ease in through decarbonization? Yes. Those are where I'm focusing. And if the industry really needs to get smart, because if we're not smart, then it's going to be, we're waiting for phase 3.
Yeah, if I may add, I agree with Justin that when thinking about where and when to produce green hydrogen with renewables, for example, so you have to be within a reasonable distance from the off-taker. So I totally agree with that, and that of course affects, like, we have to, you asked what are the big hurdles. I think the big hurdle is to get the off-takers to the table and willing, because those projects will happen if off-takers are willing to increase their usage of green hydrogen, even though it would be only a question of some percentages in their processes, but that would be significant and make those projects happen. I agree with Justin that bringing modular thinking and a more agile approach from the tech world and from the software development, what we want to do at Faraday is to integrate software to automate those production facilities and to scale them up in a modular way, not making a massive investment when you're sitting with 10 to 15 or 20 electrolyzers. And that technology is moving fast so quickly forward that technology, those electrolyzers will be old in 2 to 3 years. So when you're building in a modular way, you can build each model with the latest technology, with the better efficiency rates, and I think that will be a key change to that approach. But I would love to add that in the 1990s, when there was Hydrogen 1, and I was a small kid back then, we didn't have access to cheap renewable energy that we have now, and we didn't have so efficient electrolyzers that we have now. So when people are saying, will hydrogen come now, there's a lot of things that have changed during the past 20 to 30 years. So I'm pretty optimistic, I have to say. Yeah.
Good. And don't get me wrong, I'm bullish. But to Justin, your point as well, and is going back to my earlier point, is for us on the East Coast, 20 to 30 gigawatts of wind with our flat, seabed. Construction has started. You could see, in theory, New Jersey, with that wind energy coming in the middle of the night, electrolyzing water. It could even be salt water. So most of us in the U.S. live off the I-95 corridor. So that's where the population densities are. It's a big vision. It's a big disruptive vision. But to your point, 600 miles of shipping hydrogen may not make so much sense. I think we only have a few minutes, so we could take some audience questions. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So I think you're talking about all these colors, white hydrogen, right? So here's the thing: people are colorblind, literally colorblind. Your customers, and so the way I kind of view it is, there's not a one. You could do green, like in Illinois, where I live. There's a lot of great nuclear assets. Illinois is the biggest nuclear portfolio, but we have a lot of the load going down, and it might make sense to make pink hydrogen because they're not doing economic dispatch. And so the way I kind of view it is that you got to optimize the lowest carbon hydrogen molecule based on where the resources are strong. So if there's strong geothermal resources, yeah, do white. If you have excess nuclear capacity, you do pink. If you have a lot of dairy farms, technically that could be green hydrogen. What's saying dairy farms is not green? If you have underutilized renewable resources, then you could do electrolytic hydrogen. So we just got to throw away the colors and just try to find, how do I make the lowest carbon molecule?
When you're
I feel I was targeted, or yeah, I have to correct. I didn't say that scale is the only factor bringing down the cost. Yeah. So your question was how do you get people actually to invest when it's uncertain if the unit cost is going to come down significantly? Okay, that's a fair question. I think that it comes down to if you look at, I've been working at venture capital, so I'm going to bring your venture capitalist perspective to that. If you look at big companies that made paradigm shifts in societies, so all those investments in the beginning seemed like very far-fetched and very hard to put on an Excel spreadsheet, and coming to the conclusion that in 5 years or in 10 years this will be a great profitable business. So I would encourage especially investors having a bit more long-term perspective on when it comes to developing these technologies and these concepts and these business models, because of course if it would already now on an Excel spreadsheet be a highly profitable business, I think we wouldn't be here speculating on power techs. It would already happen. So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, like what about in the terms of consumers buying the product?
Consumers? Yeah, that's you. Maybe Kenji will reply to this, yeah.
Yeah, consumer in like hydrogen will be consumer will be like industrial, like shipping is also one of the consumer, and those movements will help the investors to invest in the hydrogen society. Like in shipping, we have to have like net zero by 2050. That's a IMO regulation. So we need a alternative fuel to move on. We just cannot burn heavy fuel oil anymore in the future. So those kind of regulations and all the other voluntary net zero targets are moving the world to invest in the hydrogen society.
Yeah, and I think we're out of time. If I could maybe read into your question as well. You mean us individual consumers? If that's what you mean, I'd make an argument. If you look at clean tech, it's proven that the consumers will consume to reduce carbon, or the solar industry wouldn't be growing to what it is on our rooftops, and you wouldn't see more and more electric vehicles on the market, and we wouldn't be using LED lighting as we have in the past. So then it goes back to the question is, at what point do the cost point, any infrastructure is there so that we consumers can now buy the hydrogen. And so if you've used the other clean tech sectors as case studies, one has started with regulatory and policy, right? Renewable energy started with the German ratepayer from the German government with the feed-in tariff, followed by US tax incentives, and that path, followed by the electric vehicles, which is still being incentivized. There's more press on it from President Biden today. That's supposed to stimulate investment. That could be venture capital to corporates. And three, and here I think with the decarbonization, you're seeing corporates themselves, to give them credit, make the first move, right? We've heard from Mitsui, right, and IIno investing in these. I don't think there's an ROI in any of the investments you talked about in ammonia today. You have the last word.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how consumers support it right now. When you go to United Airlines or American or Delta, and they ask you want to spend $7 to get sustainable aviation fuels, donate the $7. Because unless we're willing to pay up for it, the airlines are not going to buy SAF, which ultimately uses clean hydrogen to make, right? So we got to all do our part. And the end of the day is, like Americans, we don't like sticks, we like carrots.
Okay, well, I think we're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.